I had an affair with his best friend that got out of hand. He sent my husband our shocking tape. I would never forget the day my life went downhill within a blink of an eye. I thought I was having fun and exploring what I had not done before. All I wanted was to experience and venture into new things that my husband was not offering. You know, sometimes it's really bad to get married when your heart still wants to explore other things. It's like getting married when you are not even ready for commitment. I made a huge mistake and now I'm caught in such a fucked up situation I don't know what to do anymore. I just want advice, but if you're mean, I understand I made a huge mistake. This is a long story. Me, female 23, and my husband, male 26, have been married for around 3 months, but we've been together ever since my sophomore year of high school, his senior year. We've done everything together. When he went to college, we made sure that I would go to the same school. He even turned down a better scholarship to go to a school that I had a better chance of getting into, since he was one of the smart kids, and I was one of the more average kids. And when he finished, he immediately started working so that he could support us. And I drop out because he knew I hated school. He works as a software engineer right now, leaving company unnamed, obviously. Sorry for the long background, but I just wanted to show that I do love him with everything in my being and everything he's done for me, and I wouldn't give him up for anything. As time passed, I went out with him. We were still in college at that time, and he was still razzing on me. He was a very smart man and business-minded, but what I had noticed about him was that he didn't take any ** tea from anyone, and find out later that he was actually a Capricorn. He was smart, business-minded, funny, and kind, but he had a very low temper, and he was very strict. He always wanted perfection. I had thought they were playing when they say, never fool a Capricorn because their revenge is always wrath and cruel. I learned that the hard way. One thing that I can advise people on is that if you are dating a Capricorn while you are a Gemini, just prepare that your relationship will always have very serious ups and downs, because a Gemini has their own short temper, and Capricorn also. But the Capricorn always wants to have an upper hand. They lead, so as the Gemini, you will have to understand that and thread carefully. Because once you do them wrong, you would have poured gas or paraffin on an already blazing devil's fire. Ask me, I know how it's like to date and even get married to a Capricorn while you are a Gemini. So I'm talking from experience. Anyway, Dominic, my husband, was really romantic and loving. He knew how to treat a woman like a queen. So we continued going out. He showered me with so much love and gifts. The way I was falling harder and harder for him every day, I eventually found myself like I was possessive over him, or obsessed, I don't know. I would get angry if he was not answering my calls, or he would come to have one of his meetings in a cafe with a woman. Was I being obsessive or possessive over the poor guy? Time passed and he had confessed his feelings for me, but I kept turning him down and preferred having only a friendship relationship because I had thought I was not the type of girl he would want to be with. 2. I was afraid of telling him about my job as a stripper and sex worker to get money. I just couldn't tell him what I was doing for a living except for the fact that I was working at a cafe, which he knew since we first met there. I was ashamed of my second job, and on the other hand, I had fallen for the guy, but I was doubting myself. I stay at home and take care of the typical cleaning and cooking and house maintenance, so we have a good relationship and we both put in a lot of work to make sure things stay afloat. Before I get into this, I should say that my physical attraction to him wasn't the same as when we were in college. Ever since he started working, he started to work out less and doesn't come to the gym with me as often. He's not fat or anything, but it's obvious he doesn't have as much muscle, and the things he had early in college, like his six-pack, which he knows I used to love, are long gone. Maybe less working out reduced his testosterone also, because the sex isn't as frequent, and when we have it, it's not like it used to be. Starting a couple of months ago, one of his better friends that I will call Tom, male 25, started coming over to hang out. Usually I don't like his friends in our place so frequently, but me and Tom instantly clicked. Tom and I hit it off, and my husband was so happy to see that I finally got along with his friends. But then, as usual, he ended up going back to work and spending less and less time with me, which honestly might have been one of the reasons I cheated. When we were about to get married, he promised me we wouldn't fall out of touch like in the movies and that he wouldn't abandon me for work. But that's exactly what I feel like happened. Tom started swinging a couple of hours before my husband got home to wait for him comfortably, so we started hanging out. We did everything together that I felt like my husband should have taken the time to do with me. We binged Netflix, talked about so much, went out to movies. Whenever people saw us, they said I looked happier. And at that point, I think you was. Tom started swinging by to hang out with me more than my husband, so he came earlier and earlier, and soon it was just at the beginning of the day, as long as he didn't have class. He's working on his master's. My husband was very boring and always busy with work to a point that he didn't even try to make time for me. As his wife, it would always be either his work or gone to business trips that take months for him to come back. So I am young and still beautiful, so I thought, why not try what I had been missing out ever since I got married? Well, my work history is not too good, so some might know what I mean when I say some old habits die hard. One morning when he came by and we started to binge Netflix, I didn't have as much clothes on as usual because he came at like 9, which was slightly earlier than expected. But I was already so comfortable with him, it didn't matter. I only had a big shirt on and some underwear, and I didn't even realize until it was too late that I wasn't wearing a bra, so I felt awkward. Then Tom, as a joke, took off his clothes and only had a shirt and his boxers and climbed into bed next to me saying it was undies time. And he was abnormally close, but I ended up moving in even closer. He put his hand on my thigh and I ended up moving to sit in between his legs, and before I even thought about it, he turned me around and he started grinding an erection onto me and I kissed him. I didn't intend for it to go further than that, but he was everything that my husband wasn't anymore. He was still built, and I could tell he really wanted me more than my own husband had, so we ended up having sex. I trusted him, of course, so we never used protection. Throughout that day, and he gave me the opportunity to feel ways and do things I hadn't done in so long. I thought I would feel bad right after, but I didn't. I was only really excited that I was desired and wanted and satisfied again. Me and Tom continued this relationship for months, and I ended up giving him the nickname Hubby, because I really felt like he was my true husband the way he treated me. But of course, he started to get possessive like men do, and this is where the huge problems began. Whenever we had sex, he wanted my wedding ring off, and I ended up losing it, and my husband immediately noticed because I made a point of never having it off. But that was only the first thing. Tom told me to stop kissing my husband or really treating him like he was my husband at all. And I did it, and I treated my husband like shit because he manipulated me into believing he was a shitty husband in person for leaving me so alone. I went back on birth control and we never used protection because he didn't like it, and I never objected because I just enjoyed the feeling of being taken again. So one day I received a call from Tom, one of my husband's friends, the one who loved sex. I was surprised because he hadn't called me ever since the day we last saw each other. He asked me to meet him at his house, which was not far from my matrimonial home, for a quick one, of which I bluntly refused and reminded him that I was no longer into that life and I was happily married. I said that to get him off my back and hoped that maybe he would get the message, even though I was not really happy. It had been quite some time since things had been tense in my matrimonial house. My husband was acting fishy, like there was something he was hiding from me. At first I had thought it was work pressure, but things got worse. He was suddenly moody. His sex drive was no longer the same. As much as he acted like he didn't love our daughter, yes, we had a child, a daughter to be precise, or even tried to play with her, but that was a small thing compared to how he was acting towards me alone. So Tom just laughed at me when I told him that I was happily married, and he told me that if I was happily married, I would have acted like a happy person when they had come to my husband, Dominic's celebratory bride. I first didn't understand what he was trying to imply, but I somehow remembered that he was the only client that knew me at my happiest, or when I was pretending to be happy. He told me to know my worth, and if the battle that I was trying to win with Dominic was worth it, and how long would I keep fighting for something and someone who couldn't even steal a glance at me when they were in my house. What he was saying was true, but I couldn't give him that satisfaction just because my husband had changed on me. I still had faith that he would be back to be the person he was when we first started dating. My marketing company on the other side was doing well. It was the best destruction I had. Time passed, I decided to start going out to live a little, I had never got time to all that and enjoy my money because I had to think of the situation that I was facing at home. So I started by going to the mall to do some shopping, hoping that it would cheer me up just like all the girls who say shopping was a great therapy. But for me, it wasn't. I won't lie. My husband knew that I was the lover of affection and intimacy, but the way he was acting made me somehow feel frustrated and in so much desire for intimacy. Though I didn't want to do that to my husband because it was going to jeopardize my marriage, I couldn't hold myself anymore to the point that I would sometimes help myself. So when I went shopping, I bought a lot of lingerie, hoping that they would bring at least a small spark to my husband's eyes when he sees me wearing a sexy number. So when I got home, I prepared his favorite dish. Luckily, I had gotten my daughter a nanny because of work, and I was kind of tired of burdening my mother with my problems. My husband came back earlier than expected that day. The nanny and my daughter were at my mother's house, so I tried acting like a good wife and welcomed my husband with a kiss and asked him to go take a quick shower because we needed to talk. Luckily, he complied and did as instructed, while I was left to finish up everything. I made sure to wear something sexy that would make him want to eat me in an instant. When he came back from taking a shower, he came down the stairs and asked what the occasion was and where I was going since I was wearing a dress that he had not seen before. I told him that I had wanted to spend quality time with him and tried addressing the issue that we were facing in our marriage. But the guy just dismissed my concerns and changed the topic. I asked him to at least notice me as his wife. I then tried seducing him, but he was not having it. He complained about being tired, and what surprised me that day was that he asked where Chrissy, our daughter, was. I knew he didn't ask that because he wanted to ask, but it was because he wanted to dismiss what I was trying to do and address it with him. So I told him that our daughter was at my mother's house. He just took the car keys and told me that a child shouldn't be separated from their mother because that would break the connection and the bond we had, so he was going to fetch her. I didn't really understand the sudden love he had for our daughter, but somehow my heart was happy and at ease to see him considering our daughter's feelings. I had hopes that maybe we would get through everything, but who was I fooling? He left me there with a lingerie on. He didn't even try to at least compliment or show me some affection. He just remembered that he had a daughter that he had been absent with for a year. My heart was broken and I was so thirsty and hungry for some intimacy, so I found myself calling Tom with the hope that he was available. Luckily, he had invited me to their private party because I had told him that I was bored and I needed some company. I didn't even waste any time. I just changed only the dress that I was wearing, then went to the location that Tom had sent. I didn't care if my husband would come back home and not find me. All I was thinking about was the salt and desire for affection that I had been craving for. When I got there, Tom welcomed me and introduced me as his fun girl, which came as a huge shock to me because I didn't remember forming any fun relationship with Tom. But I dismissed that, but maybe we did have a fun relationship, which happened a long time ago. So the night went on, and at that party I noticed a few of Dominic's friends. Someone suggested that we all play spin the bottle, where one would either kiss the person the bottle would be pointed to, or you would have a shot of vodka. That game was fun and all. I had kissed 3 of Dominic's friends, including Tom. As the game was getting heated, someone changed it and told us to play truth or dare. I tried containing myself by choosing truths, but Tom asked if I was truly happy and sexually satisfied in my marriage. That question caught me by surprise because I didn't know how to answer, and I couldn't lie because they would see that I was lying. I was getting uncomfortable, so I changed the answer I had given them and chose dare. Tom then dared me to go to one of the rooms in the house with a guy called Kenny for 15 minutes. He looked like he had been craving for me the whole night. I was resistant at first because I didn't know what I was supposed to do in that room, but I eventually went with the guy. When we got there, the guy started touching me. Mind you, I was also tipsy, so the alcohol was playing its role on my body, so it reacted to his touch and smooth words he kept saying. Within a blink of an eye, I found myself going down with the guy. My mind had flushed down any thoughts of my marriage problems and my husband. I was enjoying the moment. My mind took me back to where and who I was before getting married and having a whole family. Not knowing that the room we were in actually had cameras, I was so caught up in a moment to a point that I didn't notice anything, plus the alcohol was doing its work. The game went on until late, and the real fun started when everyone was dancing. I was really sloshed to the point that I found myself dancing like a stripper on top of the table. I did the dance for 3 of the guys who included Tom, Kenny, and the one that used to come to the strip club for my dance. I was letting loose and cared less. Little did I know that they were actually my husband's friends. Well, I knew the 2, but I didn't know about Kenny. So as I was busy dancing, I told the guys to follow me to the private room. My stripping habits had come back on full mode, and we were all drunk, so I commanded them to follow me to the room, and they complied. When we got there, we started our little party. I danced for them and seduced them to a point that Tom and Kenny started touching me, and boom, we were having a threesome. I was enjoying the way that they were touching me and making me feel good. I don't remember where the other guy had gone, and I didn't care, so I continued with the fun I was having with 2 of these guys. We did a lot the previous night. We were all sloshed to a point that I couldn't remember everything that had taken place in the private room, though I remembered bits of what had happened. I woke up in the morning with a very serious hangover headache. When I looked at myself, I saw that I was not wearing anything. My heart started beating, thinking of the worst and thinking of how stupid I was for putting my marriage in jeopardy. I had committed adultery, something I had vowed to myself to never do again. I was so scared, thoughts were racing in my head. I couldn't help but feel guilty of what I had done, and there was no undoing it. As I was busy panicking, Tom came into the room with a cup of coffee and painkillers to kill the hangover headache. As much as I wanted to appreciate his kind gesture, my heart and my mind didn't allow me to. It was on its own dimension and a very dark one. I just couldn't stay there anymore, so I only took the painkillers and drank them before rushing home. On the other hand, Tom was acting very possessive over me. He was acting like a jealous and obsessed lover. The following morning, he was super angry at me, telling me that I had acted like a body seller in front of his friends, and the fact that I allowed alcohol to rule me. He said a lot of things that made me think that maybe Tom had thought that what we were doing or what we had was serious and was going somewhere, while I knew very well that I loved my husband to death. But his ignorant demeanor had led me to do what I did with Tom. That time I had decided to go to Tom's house. Well, more like he decided. I was so submissive when it came to him. I really don't know what was happening to me because I was not a submissive person, but Tom managed to make me a submissive person. Do you guys think I was falling in love with Tom's? I mean, the way things were happening between us and the way I was acting around him? One would swear that when I looked at Tom, I was looking at my favorite toy or candy. Though Tom was a bit controlling because he had wanted me to stop doing some things with my husband, claiming to me like I was a parcel. He had a lot of terms and conditions, but I was enjoying every moment of it. When I got home, I found my husband busy with his work. He was doing a very good job, and I was really proud of his accomplishments. I greeted him, and he told me that Chrissy was sleeping, in a very cold tone. I knew I was in deep shastrisk tea because I didn't even notify him about my sudden departure. It was something that came to mind at the last minute. I tried apologizing to him for leaving the house and not telling him where I was going. Instead of saying that maybe it's okay, he just gave me an answer. He was as cold as ice. Weeks later, I had been living in fear and thought that my husband was seeing through me what I had done. I felt like the abomination that I had done was written all over me, and it didn't help with the guilt I was feeling. During those weeks, my husband suddenly decided that he was moving out of the house when I asked him why he was doing that. He told me that it was for the best, not only for him but for myself also. I didn't understand his lame and lousy excuse, so I fought with him about moving. After the whole begging and throwing tantrums that I did thinking he would change his mind, the guy continued with his plans and moved out of the house. As much as I was fighting for my husband to stay because I didn't want our daughter to grow up in a dysfunctional household with two unloving parents, I had some hope that my husband would change and notice me again just like how he used to. But I guess I was wrong. Tom was the only person who kept me sane throughout the whole thing that I was going through in my house. It was really hard for me, so I started going to Tom's house a lot, to spend a day with him. I really enjoyed how Tom would be possessive over my body. The way he was exploring all of my being made me somehow develop something for him. I knew the risks of being in an affair with Tom would somehow put me in very hot waters, but I couldn't help it. I was enjoying the attention that I was getting, and it was really amazing to see someone getting jealous over you, seeing you like you are the apple of his eye. Tom made me feel like a woman again, but the only problem with him was that he was thinking that was my husband, or he would replace or take my husband's place in my heart. He would tell me to stop kissing my husband and doing other things to or with my husband. Stupid me, I obeyed the nonsense that he was saying. I don't know if his big tool had taken my mind, but I don't know why I was so submissive to Tom. I stopped kissing my husband. I put as much distance between us in bed as possible, and I made a point to never have sex with him no matter what. I called him fat and ugly when I got angry or was upset, and it just sent my marriage into ruins. Tom was still around, and I guess my husband realized how lovey-dovey I was with Tom because he started making accusations. And of course, Tom got possessive again. So when my husband told him he couldn't come over anymore, he sent my husband months' worth of the pictures and videos and messages we had made and sent each other as some kind of sick payback. When my husband got home, he was infuriated and he screamed and threw things, and I had no idea what to do. And I realized that Tom didn't really care about me as much as my husband did if he was willing to expose me like that. He started yelling about how hard he was working as if I didn't help around the house, and he broke a lot of my personal items. He was crying in the corner and talking about how he wanted to murder himself, and I was so scared because he randomly kept lashing out again. He kept asking me questions, half yelling, half crying about how often and how long it had been going on, and I broke down and started crying too, and told him everything. I knew there and then that my marriage was hanging on a very high and dangerous cliff. You know when you get that feeling that tells you that everything you had worked hard for was about to go south instead of north side? That was what I had felt, and I couldn't even blame anyone for it. About a week after he had moved out, a delivery guy had come to the house stating that he had come to deliver the parcel. When I asked who had sent it, he told me what all other delivery guys usually say, "I don't know, man, I'm just a delivery guy." My conscience told me that maybe it was something from my business clients. Little did I know that it was actually divorce papers and another paper that stated that Dominic was taking full custody of Chrissy. He looked at the videos on his phone, getting angry again because I told Tom I loved him and that he was better than my husband and other things that insulted him. In the videos, he saw that we were having sex in our marital bed and that we never used a condom, and he always finished inside me, and I could see something in him just break, maybe because he was my first time back in high school, and I didn't let him do any of that until we were married. He kept scratching at his skin and harming himself in weird ways, and insulting himself like I would insult him when I got angry, and I was scared he was going insane. Thankfully, the neighbors called the police due to the yelling, although they took his side a little more than mine, and they asked me if I had somewhere else to stay, so I don't know if they hospitalized him or not. Now I live with my mother and I'm working part-time again. I regret everything, though I still haven't been able to quite distance myself from Tom, because I think he really started to care for me once my husband tossed me aside, and he's been here for me. Tom calls me wifey now, and it hurts because I really just want my husband back. We haven't gotten officially divorced, but he won't talk to me or return my messages or anything at all. If I send a third party there, he just tells them to tell me to get a lawyer because he wants to divorce me. I don't know if I'll do well in the divorce since he paid for everything, and because of Tom, he has a mountain of evidence of me cheating. I really just want this all to be done and over. As if what Tom did was not enough to ruin and destroy my marriage, my husband, or must I say my ex-husband came to my mother's house and asked to speak to me. You know, I had hoped that maybe he had come to talk and fix our marriage and put aside our differences for the sake of our daughter. But the man actually came to do a nasty delivery and a message on top. I didn't know how I was going to fight Dominic over that full custody matter because, I had nothing to prove my innocence since my abomination was out there. Dominic came to deliver my panties. I really don't know why he did that, but when he came, he actually came with the cops, of which I didn't understand people. It wasn't like I was a dangerous person. He told me that he had found my panty in Tom's office, so he had thought that he should deliver it himself and not send people to do so. His excuse was lame, but I was embarrassed and kind of humiliated for getting such a delivery from my husband in front of the strangers who were cops. So to destroy the awkwardness that was building in my mother's house, I asked Dominic why he had come with cops to my mother's house, and guess what his response was? He told me that he had filed a restraining order against me and a letter of authority that forbids me from seeing my daughter. As if that wasn't enough, 2 days after Dominic had served me with a restraining order, other cops came to my mother's house. And that time my mother was the one who accepted the door. The cops asked if I was around, and my mother told them that I was inside. When they got inside, the other cop was just ugly and looked angry. They didn't even greet me. The ugly cop just cuffed me while telling me that I was arrested for attempted kidnapping of a child named Chrissy. I was shocked to find that my mind went in another zone and left me zoned out. My mind was running all over the place. I was trying to register what was happening and what those cops were telling me. How and why would I want to kidnap my own daughter? It was just hilarious and *T. My rights were read and I was taken to the cell just like that for the crime I didn't even commit. I got out after a week. A whole week I spent it in the most traumatizing and evil place. My mother fetched me from the station with no attorney to fight my battles. Now the tables have turned. Dominic came to my mother's house again, but he was going with the truck. As I was about to step out and ask what was going on, I saw my car being repossessed. Dominic came out and told me that I had no say towards the car because it was bought by him and it was under his name. That was how he took my one and only car. Not only did he stage an arrest on me and take my car, but he gave me a promise of destroying my life just like I had destroyed his heart. When he said that threat, he was not having any chill. He was so furious, even the veins were coming through his temple. I had seen Dominic angry, but the way he was angry that time made me scared and regret the things I had done. I know I should have been honest with him from the get-go, but I decided to keep everything to myself, and when the old me got unleashed, I couldn't control it, and forgot that I was no longer under the pressure of my family, and I was a married woman, but what did I do? I broke the vows that I had made in front of our families, friends, and God, and there was nothing I would have done to save my marriage. But now my life has turned to be the most threatened thing or most wanted thing on earth. To be honest, I don't even know what to do. I miss my daughter so much I might be speaking with her over the phone, but it's not the same. I miss holding her, playing with her, and sometimes going out with her, but Dominic had banned all that. He had banned me from being with my daughter, my only daughter. How fair is that? I once heard that he beat Tom to a pulp, not only beating but making sure that he dragged him with his car before dropping him to the hospital. I couldn't believe it, you know. It was just hard to believe that my loving and caring husband, Dominic, would actually do something so vile and evil. I had never thought that he had a psycho personality in him. Yes, my heart was broken, and I was really sad when I heard about Tom's story, but it wasn't as heartbreaking as being told to be 100 meters away from your own daughter. If you had a beard in your womb for the full term of 9, then a person who only donated his sperm to me decided to act Jesus on my relationship with my daughter. As much as I loved and still love Dominic, but he ruined me and ruined my life. 6 weeks later, my mother told me to stop having a pity party because it will not bring back the things that I had lost, including my daughter, but instead it would take me straight to the morgue, and when that happens, I would not be able to fight nor see my daughter ever again. Those words made me think again about life, so I took the money that I had saved from my company and the one I had got when I got divorced and used it to fix myself. I know that it's not going to be easy with Dominic busy making sure that my life is a living hell, but I'm sure that I can overcome whatever storm that I'm facing. One thing I need advice on because I don't know what to do and where to start on my daughter's issue. I want my daughter back. What should I do about this?
My name is Carla, age 37. I have been married to Thomas, age 41. My husband and I have had a boring marriage. We were good to each other because we treated each other as friends. There were times when we went about not seeing each other due to our busy schedules for days. There were never any arguments about anything in particular between us. I think us being busy was what kept our marriage without falling for the longest time. I was a nurse, and he was a salesman. We both had erratic work hours and schedules, which made it very hard for us to find time for each other. Having kids was a topic we both dreaded. Being a nurse for kids was more than enough for me to be scared of having kids of my own. I would encounter kids with all sorts of complications, which hardened my resolve not to have kids of my own. Thomas had been quite understanding about it as he knew that having kids would add to the expense, and we were not ready to take up extra expenses. We both mutually agreed on not having any kids, which upset both of our folks. But it was what it was. We were content with our decision and focused on building a strong foundation for our relationship. We filled our lives with adventures, hobbies, and quality time together, cherishing the freedom and flexibility that not having children allowed us. Our friends and family eventually came to understand and respect our choice, realizing that happiness can be found in different ways for different people. Very soon it got boring and we started living our separate lives. In a few years we became distant, and then Thomas did something unexpected that changed our lives forever. Thomas and I had very busy work schedules, which led to us seeing each other less than we previously did. Thomas had to make enough sales to keep his job and also manage our mortgage. Due to COVID and its after effects, I would mostly be tired after coming home, so sex was out of the question. There were times we would go about 15 days or even a month without sex. I would feel guilty about not being able to do my duties as a wife, but then again, nothing can beat sleep deprivation. Our days together mostly consisted of Thomas convincing me to have sex and me telling him how hard I had worked all day and just wanted to rest in peace and quiet. It was the same thing again and again. It was as if even our off days had a routine of their own. It was not always like this, though. When we started dating, we were so madly in love with each other that I would sneak Thomas to one of our empty lab rooms and make out with him. I don't know what happened as the years passed. The spark was lost, and we mostly focused on our careers and less on each other. We became consumed by our professional ambitions, prioritizing work over our relationship. The constant hustle and bustle left little room for romance and intimacy, causing the initial passion to fade away. We were finally free to get some time together with each other when I had a few days off, and Thomas had a long weekend to himself without any sales. So we decided to live a little the way we did when we were dating. We made plans and went out with friends. We were drinking and talking nonsense. We had about 4 rounds of beer and were half drunk. As we were on the 5th round, Thomas said in front of everyone that it had been almost 2 months since we had sex, and he wasn't expecting to have sex for at least a year at the rate we were going. Everyone started laughing, including me. But deep down, I was angry at how he could reveal such intimate information in front of all our friends. We were trying to mend our relationship, but Thomas and his loud mouth were not helping at all. I decided that this cannot go unpunished. I definitely did not want him to spill any more bedroom secrets in the future. I knew I had to address the issue privately with Thomas, expressing my discomfort and setting boundaries regarding our personal matters. It was important for us to establish a mutual understanding and respect each other's privacy, ensuring that our intimate details remained between us. We went home, and as usual, he tried to have sex with me. I pushed him away and told him that he was not going to get any sex at least for a year from now, just like he had predicted. He tried to reason with me, but I pushed him away and went to bed. He was too tired and drunk, so he went to sleep immediately. I was on leave for the next few days, and every day, he tried to convince me to have sex with him. I did feel bad, but every time I was about to agree, I would remember what he did at the club. This instantly angered me, and I would give a vague excuse to get myself out of the situation. This went on for 3 days that I was on leave. On the 4th day, he came in and walked directly to the bedroom. I was startled by his sudden intrusion and immediately sat up in bed, demanding to know what he was doing. His expression was filled with remorse as he apologized for his past behavior and admitted that he had been seeking forgiveness. I was determined to teach him a lesson so that he does not repeat the same mistake again. It was strange that he did not even greet me. He showered and got ready. He smelled really nice, but I did not want to give in to the temptation. He asked me how he looked, to which I replied that he looked swoon-worthy, but he was still not going to get any sex. He smiled and said that he got it covered. I assumed that he might have worked hard to sweep me off my feet and apologize. I decided to get myself ready and be presentable when it happened. I showered and wore my best-looking dress, which enhanced my features. He looked puzzled at my sudden enthusiasm. I decided to act as if I had my own stuff to do to keep up the shock value. I was almost ready when the doorbell rang and he rushed to open the door. There was a woman at the door, looking incredibly hot, who winked at him. He took her straight to our room and closed the door behind them. My heart sank as I stood there, feeling a mix of betrayal and disappointment. It became clear that his apology was never going to come, and I realized that I deserved someone who would truly sweep me off my feet and value my presence. I followed them and saw that the room was not locked. I knocked, but there was no answer, so I decided to barge in. I had to know what was going on in my house. I saw him shirtless, and the woman who walked in was taking her dress off. I asked him what all this was, and he said, like he mentioned, he got everything covered. He was fine, that I did not want to have sex, as he now realized that he did not need me to have sex. He found this really interesting proposal and met this woman who was willing to be his companion tonight. I was taken aback by his nonchalant way of telling me all this, as if it was all such a common occurrence. He did not even care about how I would feel about all this. He said that he had things to do, and if I did not mind, closed the door while leaving them alone. They continued undressing, and I did not know what to do, so I closed the door and went into the guest bedroom. I couldn't sleep the entire night as I could hear sounds and whispers from our bedroom. I tried to put my ear to the wall to listen to what they were up to. I don't know if he was really enjoying himself or just moaning too loudly to make me jealous. Maybe it was all just an act and nothing was actually happening there. I couldn't be sure until I saw it for myself. He came to the dinner table in the morning to get his coffee. I was already sitting there waiting for him as his companion had left about an hour ago. I had been waiting for the past hour, dreading to go to the bedroom as I was not ready to witness him naked after spending a night with another woman. He came and kissed me on my forehead as if nothing happened. He smiled at me and said that he had a wonderful time last night and asked me if I had a good sleep. Really, was he being serious right now? How could he even ask me that after almost causing me to have a mental breakdown? I just kept staring at him in disbelief, looking at him being so casual about it. There was no guilt or shame that he felt after what he did last night. He got ready as usual and went to work as if it was normal to sleep with another woman in the bedroom when your wife is right in front of you. I went to work but obviously could not focus on what I was doing. My job required me to be present more than 100% as people's lives depended on my actions. I decided to leave early and brainstorm a little on how to handle this issue with my husband. There was no use staying at the hospital when my mind was running all over, which could lead to serious blunders from my end. I went home and started thinking of where it all went wrong, that he had to take such a step and not even feel guilty about it. The more I thought, the more it became clearer about the night at the club where it all started. I recalled how he had been distant and unresponsive that night, spending most of his time engrossed in conversation with a mysterious woman. It was then that I realized the potential catalyst for his actions. Perhaps there was more to this situation than met the eye. As I delved deeper into my thoughts, I couldn't help but wonder if there were underlying issues in our relationship that we had failed to address. I decided to make up for it and apologize to Thomas for not bothering about his feelings for so long. No one other than me had any right to sleep with my husband. I prepared the bed and the bathroom to make it smell romantic. I lit candles and played soft music to enhance the romantic mood. I waited for Thomas to come home to the surprise. The doorbell rang and I checked myself in the mirror before opening the door. There he was, half drunk and with a new woman. He just pushed me aside and made his way to the bedroom with her. They went in and locked the door. The next morning, Thomas came and kissed me. He even thanked me for understanding his needs and decorating the bedroom for him and his friend last night. My mouth was wide open at his way of processing things. I was not doing all of that for him to sleep with a random woman. I think he knew me well enough to not come to such a stupid conclusion. Was he just trying to push me farther away by doing all of this? I did not really understand why he had to behave this way. And tonight I had decided that it would be a battle to regain my control over Thomas. He was my husband, and there was no way I would let things slip out of my hand. He wants sex, so sex is what he would get, but from me and not from anyone else. I was fully prepared for Thomas to show up and give him an ultimatum for his actions. I waited and slept on the couch itself. He never showed up. I woke up at 6 a.m. and gave him a call. He picked it up and I could tell that he was completely out of it. I was asking him where he was and if I should come pick him up. I could hear faint voices of a girl beside him. I tried to ask random things just to listen to the person beside him. He told me that he was fine and would be home for lunch. Before he hung up, I could make out that the person beside him was Karen, who was one of our mutual friends and who always had eyes for Thomas. I was devastated knowing that now he had started sleeping around with friends. How could he not think of what people would talk about us once all of this came to light? Was he so desperate for sex that he would be ready to sleep around with any person who shows even a tiny bit of interest in him? And how could Karen do such a thing? She was my friend after all. Even if Thomas was the one who suggested it, could she not have the sense to deny it? I couldn't jump to conclusions just by a few whispers. I decided to drive to Karen's house to confirm it. On my way, I kept praying for it not to be true. I had scenarios running in my head about it being true and imagining them making out. I shook my head and tried to focus on the road. I reached, and there in the corner was Thomas's car. Without thinking, I went and rang the bell. Karen opened it, and I could tell by her expression that I was the last person she wanted to see. I went inside without a word and saw Thomas sleeping in her bed with barely any clothes. Anger is not even the word that could describe what I was feeling. I snatched away the quilt and pushed Thomas to wake up. He got up with a start and looked at me. He hugged me and was going back to sleep when I asked him to see where he was. He opened his eyes and looked at Karen, and then at me. He looked at the condition he was in and understood what must have happened last night. He told me that he never knew Karen was so good at sex. I mean, really? I started throwing things at him, which he dodged successfully. He stopped me and asked me what was wrong. Could he not know what was wrong? I was not his girlfriend anymore for him to toy around with me. I demanded an explanation, and he said that he understands my point of not always being available for sex, and he respects it. He doesn't want to burden me with it, so he found a solution. This helps him with his sexual needs and does not even put pressure on me for having sex with him. According to him, it was a win-win situation for the both of us. He told me to calm down and think about it. I was fuming with anger and told him that he could enjoy all the sex he wants to with Karen or any other woman because I don't care anymore. I was done putting up with his nonsense and now I didn't want to carry on with it. I gave Karen a disappointing look and walked out of the door, slamming it shut. I sat in my car and started crying. How could my life turn out this way? Thomas was the most responsible and loyal person I had known. How could he sleep with so many women and not even feel sorry about it? I was lost for words. I am writing all this sitting in my car, as I don't think I am in the right frame of mind to drive my car. All of the good times that I had with Thomas keep flashing in front of my eyes, as I am still in denial regarding the treatment Thomas is letting me go through. I would request you to give me suggestions on how to get my life back on track after such a fiasco. Update. Here is an update to what has happened ever since Thomas has been getting every random girl home whenever I was free. I left the house that I shared with Thomas, just like a few of you suggested. I started focusing on myself and living my life the way I wanted to. I went out with my friends over the weekend to a club and saw Thomas kissing a girl not older than 21 on the dance floor. It was very awkward for both me and my friends to see Thomas this way. I thought he would ignore us, but he came to us and sat with us. He even joked about finding other avenues if you are not happy with your partner and not feel guilty about it. I was sitting right there, so how could he openly say things like that? I was done being patient and decided to hit the dance floor. I scouted a young guy myself and started dancing with him. I got close to the young guy to show Thomas that he was not the only one who was capable of doing all of this. It was like we were competing against each other to show that we didn't care. We could see the jealousy in each other's body language, but denied that we wanted to be together. The entire night we tried too hard to irk each other and show that we could live happily without each other's support. The next day I got up with a throbbing headache. I had way too many drinks. I recollected last night's events and saw a spark of anger in Thomas's eyes when I was dancing with another guy. He did care about who I was with. It was just that he was angry and wanted me to acknowledge it. I sure as hell was not happy seeing Thomas with anyone else. We were living separately, and we both knew that it was all temporary. We had been married to each other for 15 years and knew that by now we kind of developed a bond that we couldn't share with anyone else. Even though I had been living separately, never once did the thought of divorce cross my mind. I knew how to make things right. I decided to have a heart-to-heart conversation with Thomas about it. I told him that I truly loved him and would do anything to make sure that he stops behaving this way towards me. I even agreed to have an open marriage with him if he is suffering so much without sex that I have not been able to provide. I know you guys are going to judge me for opening my marriage and all that. Trust me, it does not make me happy, but I guess this is the only way I would be able to keep Thomas by my side. There is nothing else I can think of that can save my marriage. Many of you might be disappointed by my decision, but this is the only way out as I see it. Update. It has been a week since I decided to forget everything Thomas had done in order to spite me. We have started afresh and things have been very smooth between us. I must say that the once-in-a-while appearance of a new face in the bedroom is an idea that I am still not used to, but it was not as bad as I thought. I am actually glad about the idea of an open marriage, as it takes off the pressure of having sex with Thomas when I don't want to. The best part is that he gets a girl, they have sex, and she leaves. There is no emotional dependence or any drama that I would have to deal with. It is better than Thomas having an affair and asking me for a divorce. Right now, I am truly happy in my marriage, where I have the controls and I can make it work in my favor. Thomas and I mutually decided on the girl that he could bring home, and I would have my alone time that day with myself. The next morning would be just me and Thomas together working as a team to better our marriage. I wish we could have done this sooner so that we would have had a much more beautiful marriage all this while. I know that most of you might be disappointed by my decision to stay with Thomas, even after sleeping around with so many women. I should have separated and found a better man, but trust me, it is better to live with the devil you know than go searching for a new unknown one. As long as Thomas sticks to his promise of only sex and no emotional connection with all of his companions, I think it would all be okay. I know for a fact that no other woman would be able to put up with Thomas and his weird demands if they would have to live with him. I guess that is how I am going to proceed with my marriage going forward. I take a keen interest in choosing the girl that Thomas would be having fun with, and gives me enough control on the situation. This also sends a message to the women that I am willing with all of this, and Thomas would do things only by taking my approval. Even I would have fun once in a while with a man of my choice after seeking Thomas's approval. It was only right if both of us reaped the benefits of this open marriage. This has opened a new avenue of happiness, which does not require us to feel pressured or burdened to keep each other happy. We could delegate the sex part to others, and when we needed to have a heartfelt conversation, we always had each other to fall back on. We were enjoying this phase of our lives, which helped us focus both on our careers and also on things that needed focusing. I thank all of you for being a part of my journey from a disastrous marriage to a successful one. I would not have been able to keep sane and do all of this without your opinions and suggestions. Thank you so much for sticking with me all this time and making sure that I make the right decisions. I would suggest anyone going through a rough patch in their marriage, especially due to sexual issues, to give open marriage a go. I understand that it's not everyone's cup of tea, but it might just be the right thing to improve your marriage. If the sole problem is time for sex, then definitely try it out and see how it goes. The disclaimer is to make sure that there is no emotional involvement whatsoever, to make sure that you always have an upper hand.